You ever have one of those nights where everything is just too perfect? That was Tuesday for me. Tuesday of all days. The kind of day nothing significant is ever supposed to happen. You don't expect a tidal wave on a Tuesday. I came home from work late, not because I had to, but because I didn't feel like going home. I told myself it was the traffic. Truth was, home had started feeling like the waiting room to an uncomfortable truth. Sterile, predictable, cold if you sat too long. But when I walked through the front door, it smelled like rosemary chicken, my favorite. The table was set for two. Candles, even. My wife, Claire, was in the kitchen, humming softly. She turned when I walked in and smiled like nothing was off. "Hey babe," she said. "I made that thing you like. Chicken with roasted lemon and thyme." Surprise. I blinked. Claire hated cooking. Said the stove made the house feel like a sauna, and that dinner was something Postmates did better. But here she was, hair pinned up, apron on. Like some glossy magazine version of herself. "Thanks," I said, stepping out of my shoes. "What's the occasion?" She waved me off. Just felt like doing something nice. I sat down. We ate. Kind of. I poked at the chicken more than anything. My stomach was too busy listening for signs. The slight flinch, the misplaced glance, the phone she flipped over too quickly. But nothing came. Not until dessert. She brought out this little ramekin of creme brulee. Torch sugar crust and all. I was mid-bite when she said, "You remember Ryan, right?" I looked up. "Ryan who?" "Ryan Blake. From my old job. You met him once. At the firm's Christmas party." I remembered Ryan. Too tall. Too smooth. The kind of guy who used too much cologne and complimented other men's wives with that laminated smile. "Yeah, I remember," I said, spoon halfway to my mouth. "Well, he's back in town. And we had coffee last week." Oh, there it was. I didn't blink. Just nodded and said, "Nice. How's he doing?" She tilted her head slightly, like she was testing the water temperature of my reaction. "He's good. Still in marketing. Still single." I chewed. Swallowed. Cool. Then came the silence. Long enough to stretch across both our plates. Finally, she said it. I kissed him. She said it like she was mentioning the weather. No guilt, no fanfare. Just put it on the table like a bill that had to be paid. I set down my spoon. Not because I was angry. No, not yet. But because the part of me that had held out hope that I was just being paranoid had finally died. "You kissed him." She nodded. It was a moment. It didn't mean anything. I leaned back in my chair. Stared at her like she was an unfamiliar painting someone had hung in my hallway. "You cooked my favorite dinner to tell me that." She shrugged. "I didn't plan to. But it felt dishonest not to." I could have laughed, really. Dishonest? She said it like she'd borrowed $20 from my wallet without asking. Not like she'd just torched the foundation of our marriage over artisanal custard. "You're not sorry," I said. "I'm conflicted," she replied. I nodded once. Picked up my glass. Swirled the wine a little, like I was buying time for my disappointment to settle into something manageable. She asked, "Are you okay?" I took a sip and said, "No, but I've been worse." That was the first domino. The start of the unraveling. And what she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly guess, is that I wasn't going to scream or cry or beg. I was going to take notes. And when it was my turn, let's just say, dessert was going to be unforgettable. I didn't confront her that night. Didn't pack a bag. Didn't sleep in the car. I just brushed my teeth beside her like we were still the couple we had pretended to be at dinner. She even reached for my hand under the covers like nothing had happened. And I let her. Because I wasn't interested in being angry. I was interested in being right. The next morning, she left early for her kickboxing class. Funny thing, Claire hadn't mentioned exercise in months. The only thing she'd fought recently was a zippered tote bag from Nordstrom. But sure, kickboxing. As soon as her car pulled out, I went to the study. Opened the laptop I knew she used when she didn't want to be distracted. She was meticulous, cleared her history, used incognito mode. But nobody hides from a husband who's been in IT for 12 years. See, Claire forgot that Google Maps remembers everything. Timeline, destinations, frequent locations. If she'd visited Ryan Blake's apartment once, that was curiosity. 7 times in the last 2 weeks? That was choreography. I pulled out a legal pad and started writing. Not rage. Not poetry. A checklist. Step 1, know the enemy. I started with Ryan. Found his Instagram. Public, of course. Guys like him crave an audience. Shirtless gym selfies, brunch photos, The occasional motivational quote that always managed to sound vaguely threatening. One post from last weekend caught my eye. He was at a vineyard, glass raised, captioned, "Good company makes good wine taste like heaven." I zoomed in on the reflection in the glass. Blonde hair, gold earring. Claire. People forget reflections don't lie. Step 2. Let them think they're safe. I played my part. I smiled. I kissed her cheek in the mornings. I asked about her workouts, told her I was proud of her dedication. I even complimented her hair, because flattery makes people careless. And she was careless. Left her phone unlocked one day while showering. I didn't scroll. I searched. For one name, Ryan. Bingo. Their thread was a buffet of cheap intimacy. Pet names. Emojis. Things she never said to me anymore, and maybe never had. The messages weren't explicit, but they were worse in a way. Because they were casual. They talked like they were already living a life I wasn't invited to. Step 3. Take inventory. I started making digital backups. Emailing copies of texts, location history, screenshots of Instagram posts to a cloud folder she didn't know existed. I didn't need leverage. I needed a ledger. If this was war, I wasn't going to be the guy crying into a lawyer's office rug. I was going to be the one walking in with the receipts and the quiet smile of a man already 10 moves ahead. One night, 2 weeks in, I found Claire sitting on the couch, phone in hand, grinning at something she wasn't ready to share. "You're glowing," I said. She looked up too quickly. "Am I?" "Yeah," I smiled. "Must be all that kickboxing." She laughed. "Maybe I'll show you my roundhouse someday." "I'd love that." She believed me. That was her mistake. Because what she didn't realize is that I was already mid-roundhouse. Only mine wasn't aimed at a punching bag. It was aimed at her entire illusion. 3 weeks into my quiet little investigation, I decided it was time to pay Ryan Blake a visit. Not like in the movies. No baseball bat, no rolled-up sleeves. Just me, a coffee, and a smile that said I already know everything, and I'm here to make sure you do too. Ryan's office was in one of those glass-paneled towers downtown, where people wear sneakers with suits and pretend ping-pong tables make them innovative. I called ahead, said I was a prospective client. Used a fake name, Graham, because I figured a guy like Ryan would respect a name that sounded like it had a trust fund. The receptionist ushered me in. Ryan stood when I entered, all confidence and teeth. Tan, tailored, and thoroughly unaware of what was about to happen. "Hi there," he said, extending a hand. "Graham, let's skip the small talk, Ryan." I dropped the folder on his desk. He looked at it, then at me. "Do I know you?" "You don't. But you do know my wife. Claire." Boom. No drama, no shouting. Just a nice clean opening pitch. His smirk twitched. "Look, man, if this is about..." "It is," I cut in. "It's about all of it." He didn't open the folder. He didn't need to. I could see the flicker in his eyes, the one where men start rewinding tape in their heads, wondering how long they've been caught. "I didn't mean for anything to happen," he said, already backpedaling. "We just connected." I didn't know she was married. I finished for him. She wore her ring for 5 years straight. Took it off 4 weeks ago. "You think that was for style?" He swallowed. "This isn't a threat. Ryan, I'm not here to fight you." He raised an eyebrow, cautious. "Then what is this?" "It's a forecast," I said, leaning back in the chair like we were old buddies discussing the weather. "Just wanted you to know that I know. No surprises." He nodded slowly. "Okay. And also, I wanted you to consider something." "What's that?" I stood, straightened my jacket. "Claire's cheating on me with you. What makes you think she won't cheat on you with the next Ryan?" No answer. I walked to the door, then paused. "Oh, and just a tip. She hates Sauvignon Blanc. But she tells people it's her favorite because it sounds elegant. Ask her about it next time you're playing house." And just like that, I left. No threats. No mess. Just a crack in the mirror that would spread slowly over time. Because here's the thing about guys like Ryan. They think they're the exception. But really? They're just next in line. And me? I wasn't mad anymore. I was planning the endgame. And it was going to be the kind of ending you don't bounce back from. After I left Ryan's office, I didn't go straight home. I parked 2 blocks away from our house, just outside the corner market, and sat in the car with the engine off. The grocery bags from my errand sat untouched in the passenger seat. Almond milk, Claire's favorite granola, toothpaste I didn't need, all part of the normal routine. The camouflage. You see, when you're planning to burn something down, the trick is to act like you're still watering it. I stared at our house for a while. Lights on upstairs. Claire must have come home early. I imagined her sitting cross-legged on the bed, scrolling through her phone with a face she only made when she was messaging someone she shouldn't be. She had this way of grinning, tight-lipped, a little sideways, like she was trying to hide joy from the furniture. I used to love that smile. Now I studied it like a crime scene. When I finally walked in, she was in the kitchen, cutting peaches. Fresh ones. Peach season was her favorite, but she always said it was too much effort to slice them. Another tiny inconsistency added to the growing collection. "Oh hey," she said brightly, like nothing in the world had fractured. "Hey," I replied, setting the bags down. "Got the granola." "Perfect," she smiled. "You're the best." I smiled back. There it was. The lie. Not just in her voice, her whole presence. Her arms, her posture, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear like she was the innocent one. It wasn't just that she was cheating. It was that she thought I was stupid enough not to see it. "Dinner tonight?" she asked. "I have a late call with the Sydney team." I lied smoothly. "Might be a long one." She didn't even pretend to be disappointed. "That's fine. I was thinking of catching up with some friends anyway." "Ryan." I said it casually, flipping through the mail. She froze. Not for long. A half-second hiccup of tension. But I caught it. She recovered fast. "Ryan?" "No. Haven't talked to him in a while." I looked up from the electric bill, met her eyes, and nodded once. "Good. He seems like the type who'd mistake confidence for character." She laughed. A little too loud. "Wow. Okay, philosopher. Just a thought," I said, already leaving the room. In chess, it's called zugzwang, a situation where every move your opponent makes only brings them closer to checkmate. I just started hers. That weekend, I staged the final illusion, a surprise weekend getaway. "We need to reconnect," I said, looking her dead in the eye. "Somewhere quiet." She lit up like a Pinterest board. "Really? Just us. Just us." I rented a cabin 3 hours north. A place with poor reception and a wood-burning fireplace. The kind of cozy that made people feel honest. I made it sound spontaneous, romantic, healing. Claire jumped at it like it was a life raft. We drove up Friday morning. She played the road trip DJ, blasting old playlists we made back when the lies weren't as sophisticated. I let her think she was winning me back, that I was softening, that we were healing. It was cute, honestly. At the cabin, I played my part. I cooked. I rubbed her shoulders. I told her I missed her laugh, even though I hadn't actually heard it in weeks, just the version she used on her phone. I let her believe this was forgiveness. That's when she got careless. She left her phone unlocked, went to shower while I was doing the dishes. And like any trained archaeologist of betrayal, I got to digging. There it was, Ryan's name buried under a fake contact. Laura M. Original, Claire. I read the last thread of messages. "Claire, cabin this weekend." He planned it. So sweet it's almost suspicious, grinning face with sweat. "Ryan, don't fall back in love now, lol." Claire, "I can pretend for 48 hours." Face blowing a kiss. I stood at the sink, hands in soapy water, staring at the screen. The steam from her shower filled the air like fog before a war. I put her phone back exactly where she left it. Not a fingerprint out of place. Finished the dishes. Washed my hands. And I smiled. That night, she kissed me. Said she was grateful. Said it felt like we were getting back to us. And I agreed. Because what I was doing was exactly for us, just not in the way she thought. The next morning, I said I needed to step out for air. She was still asleep, sun warming her cheek, mouth parted slightly. Peaceful. Like someone who didn't realize their trial had already started. I walked to the small lake behind the cabin, pulled out my phone, and opened the folder. The folder with every screenshot, voice recording, GPS location, and photo. A curated anthology of lies. I emailed it to my lawyer. Subject line, "Let's talk options." Then I sent one final email. To Claire. Subject, just some light reading. Attachment, everything. No text. No explanation. Just the truth, wrapped in a neat little PDF. I didn't send it out of spite. I sent it because it was time for her to stop pretending too. When I got back, she was still asleep. Peaceful. Oblivious. For the last time. I made coffee. Scrambled eggs. Played along one last time. Because when you take revenge properly, no one even knows they're being destroyed until the credits roll. The email landed in her inbox at exactly 7:02 a.m. Claire was still in her robe, feet up on the couch at the cabin, sipping the coffee I brewed, because apparently, Betrayal tastes better with Colombian roast. I sat across from her with my own mug, pretending to scroll through the news while watching her face for the moment she met herself in full-length truth. At 7:03, she refreshed her inbox. At 7:04, her face stopped moving. She stared at the screen like it had slapped her. She didn't speak, didn't blink. And I, dutiful husband, took a long sip of my coffee like I had no idea the ground beneath her feet had just opened up. She finally looked up. "What is this?" I raised an eyebrow. "Something wrong." She hesitated, trying to calculate how much I knew, and realizing too late that math was no longer in her favor. "Did you go through my phone?" "No," I said flatly. "I went through your life." She flinched. Real. Honest. The first genuine emotion she'd shown me in months. "I can explain," she began. "Don't," I interrupted. "You'd be lying. And we're all out of storage space for those." She shut the laptop, slowly. Like maybe if she closed it, she could close the situation. "But you can't unsend proof. You can't unwrite face-blowing kispt. I can pretend for 48 hours. I let her sit in that silence. Let it grow uncomfortable. Let it wrap around her like the cold she thought I didn't know about. Then I stood up, walked to the fireplace, and tossed another log on. Watched the sparks shoot up like applause. "You brought me here to manipulate me," I said. "I brought you here to expose you." She started crying, quiet at first. The kind of cry that comes when someone's lost control of the narrative, not when they feel remorse. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. "You didn't mean for what to happen? The affair or the discovery?" She didn't answer, just stared down at her mug, like it had answers written in the foam. Her hands shook, but not from regret, from fear. I sat back down. "I already filed." Her head snapped up. "What?" "Divorce papers," I clarified. "You'll be served sometime next week, depending on how fast the process runs." Her voice rose an octave. You can't just decide that. You decided that when you chose him." "I'm just signing the paperwork." Claire set the coffee down too hard. It sloshed over the rim and stained the hem of her robe, but she didn't seem to notice. "What about counseling?" she asked, desperation flickering now. "We could fix this." I laughed. Not a kind laugh. The dry, bitter kind that sounds like a throat clearing for the truth. "You want to fix something you lit on fire?" "With what, Claire?" "Sentimental duct tape." "You're overreacting," she snapped, her tears weaponized now. "It was just one mistake." "No," I corrected her. "It was one choice. Repeated. Scheduled. With emojis." She crossed her arms like armor. "So that's it. One mistake and you throw away everything." "You didn't throw it away," I said calmly. "You fed it to Ryan Blake in spoonfuls." Her expression cracked. Not from shame. Claire was never good at shame. From recognition. From the realization that for once, the performance wasn't working. That the audience had walked out. That I wasn't clapping. And I wasn't coming back. Back home, I moved out before she even had a chance to return. One suitcase. One box of essentials. I left behind everything else because none of it belonged to me anymore. She texted, then called, then texted again. All variations of, "We can still work this out. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you to find out like this." And my personal favorite, "You're blowing this out of proportion." I didn't respond to any of them. Not out of pettiness, but because I'd already moved into a different state of mind. A better one. See, I didn't need closure from her. I needed space from her definition of love. What Claire never understood was that I'm not a man who yells. I'm the man who notices, who waits, who records, and who, when pushed far enough, rewrites the ending. 2 days later, I met with my lawyer. "I've got enough documentation to put Noah's Ark to shame," I said, sliding the folder across his desk. He leafed through it, eyebrows climbing. "This is comprehensive. I'm a detail-oriented guy." He smiled. "You want to go for everything?" "No," I said. "I want to go for exactly what I'm owed. Nothing more, but definitely nothing less." We filed the next day. Infidelity clause. No alimony. Split assets minus the house. She could have the kitchen where she practiced her lies. I wanted none of it. And Ryan? Well, that's the part she hadn't seen coming yet. Because what Claire didn't know is that I also sent the package to him. Every message, every photo, every breadcrumb of betrayal with a cover letter that simply read, "In case you were under the impression she was only pretending for 48 hours. Because Claire lied to him, too. Told him she was unhappy, sure. That I was distant, cold, boring. But she also told him I didn't know. that he was the real connection. Now he knew he was just the side dish to a marriage she was still cashing in on. His reply? A single text. Ryan, she said she loved me. Me. She said the same thing to me. While packing her bags to come see you. Radio silence after that. And that, dear reader, that's what you call a 2-for-1 special. You know what they never show you in the movies? The quiet. Not the dramatic, stormy kind. No thunder rolling in the distance. No glass of whiskey half finished while you brood in a leather chair. I'm talking about real silence. The kind that fills a room after everything's already fallen apart, and you're the only one left who still knows how to sit with it. It's the sound of her keys not turning in the door anymore. Her phone not buzzing across the kitchen counter. Her perfume not hanging in the air like some memory too polite to leave. It was the sound of freedom, even if it didn't feel like it yet. I'd been living in a short-term rental for about a month. 1 bedroom, white walls, a couch that looked like it gave up on comfort years ago. But it had a lock, and more importantly, it didn't have her. Claire still texted. Not every day anymore, but enough to let me know she hadn't figured out how to stop orbiting the life she ruined. Claire, I can't believe you're doing this. Claire, can we at least talk like adults? Claire, I didn't deserve to be humiliated like that. That last one made me laugh out loud. I didn't respond, of course. Why break the silence when it was finally speaking the truth louder than she ever did? But that didn't mean I was done. Because while she was still reeling from public exposure and private consequences, I was tying the last bow on the gift she gave me. Total clarity. See, there's something about betrayal that most people don't talk about. It doesn't just end the relationship, it kills the version of yourself that allowed it to happen. The trusting one. The accommodating one. The man who thought love meant giving someone all your blind spots and hoping they never took the wheel. That guy? Dead and buried. What rose up in his place? Let's just say, someone with a better aim. One afternoon, I got a message from Claire's sister, Maggie. Now, Maggie and I were never particularly close. Cordial. Friendly at family holidays. But we never exchanged texts unless it was about who was bringing the pie. But this time, Maggie, hey, not taking sides. Just, you should probably know Claire's been telling people you cheated first. I blinked at the screen, then laughed. It was always projection with Claire. Like betrayal was a math equation. And if she could say I was unfaithful first, then maybe she could cancel out the guilt. I didn't respond to Maggie right away. Instead, I did what I do best. I filed that message away under use later. Then I called a friend. Well, more like an old contact. Guy named Eli. We used to play pickup basketball on Saturdays before life made excuses. Eli was a real estate agent now. Knew everyone. Knew everything. He also happened to be the guy who sold Ryan Blake his swanky little bachelor loft last year. I asked Eli if he'd heard anything. He chuckled. Actually, Ryan's putting it on the market. No kidding. Yup. Word is he's trying to move cities. Fast. And just like that, I knew the final thread had snapped. Ryan was bailing. Claire had bet the house on a man who didn't even have the decency to stay long enough to pretend they had a future. He'd ghosted. Quietly. Efficiently. Like a coward with a travel rewards program. A week later, I finally replied to Claire. Just one message. Me. Still pretending for 48 hours. Or has it gotten harder now that he's gone? No reply. I didn't expect one. But the read receipt came in about 30 seconds after I sent it. So I knew she saw it. Sometimes that's better than a response. Sometimes silence is the only honest thing a liar can give you. Now, I'd love to tell you I walked away from all this unscathed. That I was better, healed, enlightened. But that's the kind of story people tell themselves to avoid admitting the truth. Here's mine. I was still angry. I didn't want Claire back. Not even close. But I did want to make sure she remembered. Not just the fallout. Not just the files I sent. But the fact that she underestimated me from the beginning. She thought she was playing chess. Turns out, she was the queen in my pocket the whole time. So I did one last thing. I printed out the screenshot of her 48 hours message. The one she sent to Ryan when she thought I was stupid and soft and clueless. I framed it. Nothing fancy. Just a small, clean black border around the digital lie that unraveled her entire story. And then, I mailed it to her. No note. No return address. Just a gift. So every time she picked it up, she'd remember 2 things. She played the wrong game. She lost to the guy she thought wasn't even keeping score. After I sent the frame, I didn't expect a reaction. But Claire, being Claire, gave me exactly what I needed. 3 days later, I got a voicemail. Her voice was trembling, not from sadness, but from the kind of frustration people feel when they realize their favorite weapon doesn't work anymore. You're being petty, Logan. Vindictive. This isn't who you are. That was the moment I smiled, genuinely. Because that was exactly the point. This wasn't who I was. But it's who I became when my trust got kneecapped in a kitchen over peaches and pretense. Claire had lived in an echo chamber so long she'd convinced herself that pain, when applied gently, didn't count as cruelty. But the problem with echo chambers? They only reflect back what you shout. And right now, all she heard was her own voice, alone. The social circles were the last to fall. Our mutual friends didn't pick sides immediately. They all had that awkward Switzerland energy, the kind where people say things like, "We just want to stay neutral," as if betrayal was a volleyball match. But slowly, things shifted. Ryan Blake's name started carrying a smell. Not literal, but close. People don't want to be close to secondhand scandal, especially when it doesn't come with a punchline. Claire was invited to fewer dinners, fewer brunches. Suddenly, everyone had plans when she suggested wine night. And me? Let's just say, I became interesting again. The guy who handled the storm with a smile and receipts. The man who didn't make a scene, but made a point. Even Maggie, the sister, texted again. Just wanted to say, you deserved better. I didn't see it before. I do now. I didn't reply, but I archived it. Not out of bitterness, just bookkeeping. You never know which truths you'll need again. Funny thing about rock bottom, it's quieter than you'd expect. No fireworks. No emotional montage. Just a peaceful nothing. I moved into a new place. Bought my own silverware. No more his and hers, anything. I started jogging again. No headphones. Just me and the sound of my breath coming back. I signed up for a woodworking class. Not because I needed a hobby, but because I wanted to build something that couldn't lie to me. No photos of Claire in the new place. No memory box. Just one folder on a flash drive labeled The Fire. I'll probably never open it again. But I keep it. Because some fires don't get put out. They just teach you not to play with matches. You wanted revenge. Here it is. Months passed. The divorce finalized. Claire got the house, the silence, and a reputation with more cracks in it than the patio she made me power wash every spring. But I didn't just disappear. No, I did something worse. I thrived. I didn't date right away. That would have been too easy. No rebound. No she's hotter than you parade. I just got better. Slowly. Intentionally. The last time I saw Claire was at the grocery store. She was in sweats. No makeup. Hair in a messy bun that didn't look curated for Instagram. She was holding a box of wine and standing behind an older couple who kept apologizing for how slowly they were loading their groceries. She looked tired. Smaller. She looked at me like I was the ghost. I just nodded politely. No words. That was the final cut. No rage. No reminder. Just a man she once knew, who no longer looked at her like she mattered. That's revenge. Not the frame. Not the files. Not the whispers in the friend group or the email to her side piece. The real revenge was letting her live in the ruins of the story she wrote, alone, and walking out of it without a limp. Let her tell her next boyfriend I was the bitter one. Let her pretend I was too sensitive or emotionally unavailable. Let her sell her version of the story to anyone still willing to pay. Because I won't correct her. I don't need to. I'm not in the story anymore. I'm the ending.